Let's kick things off then, and we've talked a lot about how technology disrupts things, how important data is. Tim, maybe we could circle back to you as we started the conversation with you some time ago. Access to data then clearly very important for all the businesses here, and it's what you do with that data that could then differentiate Qantas from Emirates, from JetBlue, from each other. How important is that decision then as to where you focus your data efforts?
Well, the CEO of a business such as ours has got to put data, tech at the center of the business from now on. So how you use that data, what algorithms you use to do the kind of work that you need to, as you say, differentiate yourself from the competitors. But actually, it's not so much about the competitors, it's trying to increase your share of wallet. Because the questions you were asking earlier about, why do you do this? If you don't, one, your wallet share goes down. Two, you get subsumed by the people who are after commoditize you. So whether you're a hotel, you're an airline, et cetera, et cetera. So as we move forward, the value you have to assess with regard to the do nothing, the control, continue to do things as you were, as against putting the digital world and data at the center of your business, the heart of your business. You have to spend a lot of money. You talked about deep pockets, etc. But there is no compromise in that. Your enterprise, your business enterprise, intelligence, etc. relies on a compendium, a constant flow of data, from which, if you're smart with the algorithms you build, it'll give you the data that focuses the ability of the product planners and designers to get the job done in terms of what people really want, not what you think they want, and then execute that in the digital sort of platform, on the digital mobile platforms. So it has to be now more than this is the problem a lot of companies are facing, that they can't get a buy-in. As I said, I talked about lip service earlier on. If you don't do that in a business such as ours, we talk about disruption planning, and I've got one hub. I carry 1.2 million passengers a week. Okay, so if we lose the hub for 3 or 4 days, we are in serious trouble. Okay, so you need all of this technology to help you through that. So data is key. Data is the beauty about it is that we have such vast computing power now to not use that data, not construct the data, not seek the data, not sort the data in a manner that's going to help you do the job better. One, to be better at what you were doing. Two, to protect yourself against predatory activity, not just from the airline consumers, but from others who are out there to try and say, I'll have a piece of you, I'll bundle you up with whoever it may be, and I'll get the margins like Expedia, 25% on a hotel booking, etc., etc. I want that. Why can't I do that? He wants it.
It's interesting to think about this, how you navigate the world of data in the context of another industry that springs to mind. When supermarkets issued loyalty cards for the first time, they suddenly got so much data, and there were a lot of voices telling me that they don't have the capacity to manage it, they don't know where to start with it. So how do you prioritize the data that you're going to deem worth paying for?
Right. If you look back at JetBlue 5 years ago, we didn't own any data. Pretty much all the customer data, operational data, they were all sitting outside JetBlue. So we took a very conscious step to make a big investment in our foundational ability to own this data. So over the last 3 years, we've invested on something called the Data Domain Platform, which is several millions of dollars we brought in. What it gave us was a good view of our customer, crew member, and operational data. We had to bring it in-house. We couldn't just outsource and think that we're going to see everything together. So this brought everything together. Added on top of this is a great messaging platform that can communicate to different stakeholders. So that's what we did in the first 3 years. We're now scaling them up. So what we learned is it's not just good enough you bring in this data, you need to find use cases to make the best use of it. And we started building use cases on top of this, how you address like disruption, how do you address, changes to reservations or maintenance planning. All these things, if you look at it in isolation, they're all separate, but when you tie them together, it all makes sense. A maintenance event could cancel a customer who could essentially have to be reaccommodated. All these things are tied together. So we worked on that for the past 3 to 5 years. What we are seeing now is the complete next chapter of this data. It's machine learning and artificial intelligence. This is where I think the future is going to be. We moved most of our data into the cloud, so scale is not a problem anymore. We can scale up another 1,000 terabytes of data if I have to. The technology aspect of it is pretty easy to manage today. It's what do you do with these new capabilities that's come out in machine learning and artificial intelligence? And the power of that capability is just enormous. And we're probably at the tip of the iceberg right now. And once you start seeing that come up, I'll give you a perfect example. Predictive maintenance is a big thing in this industry. Nobody has even touched that yet. But if I know a plane is flying into Cuba tomorrow, and I know there's going to be a problem, why would I take that plane to Cuba? I would be putting it on a maintenance schedule and not disrupting customers flying into Cuba. We don't do that today. And I think that's the next chapter for JetBlue.
So that's another way that you can use that kind of data. Gareth, in the Qantas experience, then we talked about the next step for artificial intelligence and those opportunities. Are these things that are on your radar? Are they something that you want to? I mean, at Emirates, they've appointed a digital officer to explore all of this and the technology piece in a different way. Do you need to reposition technology to sort of move it up the agenda, or has it already got high profile enough?
I think, as everybody on the panel has said, how airlines deal with the digital revolution that we're undergoing has to be core to the strategy going forward, and it's absolutely core to our strategy. How we differentiate ourselves from our competitors in the future, I say this a lot internally, we can't make the beds any flatter or the screens any bigger. It's going to be with mobile devices. And at the same time, we have to be as efficient and effective as we can be through our operations. So you have to have a digital strategy at the core of your business strategy.
What do we need to be able to do on mobile that we can't already, then, as aviation passengers or as aviation businesses?
You've got to provide the products to customers in the way that they want to consume them. And more, that's going to be that on mobile. You've got to make it, even today, it's not easy to book. It's not easy to construct a complex itinerary. It's not easy to change or service. It's not, if you're turning up in the Sydney airport, should there be a button on there on your mobile where you say, I'm in the airport, I'd like my normal coffee delivered to the lounge. Those little things that know where you are, who you are, what you are to the airline, what your preferences are, and make that journey easy. Putting all of that together is going to differentiate you from your competitors. But that's only part of the story. There's a huge amount of operational complexity that can be stripped out by the right use of technology and the right use of data.
And Tim, you talked earlier about how the low-cost airlines, they've done wonders in some senses for the aviation industry, for customers. Are they going to be the innovators around what to do with data, or is it going to be elsewhere? It's going to be other parts of the industry. Your face says no.
I don't think they would be singled out for special attention in terms of the use of data and the development of data. We've all got to do it. In and out of our business, in every walk of life, whether you're online marketing, you're in fintech, you're in pharmaceuticals or whatever, data drives everything now. And what has happened is that the data, I mentioned things like fintech, I've mentioned pharmaceuticals, etc., medical research, life sciences, that has been so transformational, measurably so in the last 5 years, that to ignore it is you do at your peril. I repeat myself on that. We all have to do it. Now, we want to hyper-personalize. You say, what is this device going to do? I want to know as much about you that Langley knows about you and Cheltenham does. Okay?
Should that make me scared?
Well, I don't know. But I mean, frankly, you have a device on you which is incredibly powerful. And we need to take these mobility platforms. We talked about airport check-in, we talked about retailing, we talked about package construct, we talked about hyper-personalization, using the digital analytics to know more about you than probably know yourself, what you like, where. And from that, it leads us into a huge dimension of possibility. So the trick is to understand what is going to generate value in the short, medium, and long term. Otherwise, you can go down a track nice to have and then say, well, what are we doing this for? I don't know. Look good. But actually, no. For us, each business, airlines, banks, pharmaceuticals, food chains, Alibabas of the world, are doing things based essentially on data, compilation, extract, sort, and doing what is best suiting for them. The airline business, whether it be low cost or full service, doesn't really differ on that at all. We just have different business models, but data, without it, you're going to be somebody who has got data at the core of the business if you're in the low cost, and he's in parallel with you on the same route. You'll fly empty, he'll fly full, or he'll fly full with 5 cents a seat mile, and you fly full with 15 cents a seat mile. Because you've done the work, you've actually constructed using the data, the type of offering that your consumers want, for which you can extract value. And that's not just about the seat, it's about all the bits and pieces you pull in, because I know more about you. And I'm able to throw at you in this hyper-personalization environment, that using your mobile, whatever it may be in the future, the ability to actually do the job best for you. I know when you want to go, where you want to go, why you want to go, who you want to go with, what other things are going on at the time around that reason for travel. You're not traveling on me because you want to travel on me. You want to go to a place. It's always been a derived demand. And that's the essence of what we do. We are a derived demand, but people go there for reasons. And the value that you can extract by compiling all of that and bring it into your wallet, going back, is vital to the future of what we do. Otherwise, we will be subsumed.
Ish, what do you want to know about me, the passenger, that I don't even know about myself? Are there points of data that you want to know about your passengers at the moment they're just not available to you?
I go back to my statement. I think the customer or the passenger wants very simple things. We try to overcomplicate the whole process by thinking they want way too many things. I started by thinking this is the only industry where self-service, the concept, the philosophy of self-service was pushing all the airline problems to the customer and asking them to do it. And that's what self-service was. If you start looking at every step in the process, we've just passed our problems to somebody else, and we think that they want this, they want to do this. Nobody wants to check in. Nobody wants to go through the shopping experience today. I think the passenger needs or the customer needs are very simple. If you give them a very simple experience to go through and make it seamless, they will come to you. From a data standpoint, what we have learned in the last 3 to 5 years is there is no data that's good enough. There's always elements of data you need to find partners to work with. And that's where our partnerships with Amazon and other major players come into play, because as an airline, people come to you once or twice a year. They go to Amazon every minute. They go to a MasterCard every minute. They're attached to them. So the whole point of stickiness to the brand in the airline industry is far, far less compared to other brands that we see, and we have to find a way to partner with them to get that stickiness back to our JetBlue's consumer base.
Yeah, is this pursuit of data then driving partnerships beyond just other aviation partners? We think of partnerships for airlines, and you've got deals within alliances, well-known global alliances, and then other deals on top of that, some of them on the stage here today. These drive alliances with other businesses, though. It seems we wouldn't have been 10 years ago talking about doing deals with somebody like Amazon, perhaps, in the aviation industry. These are new relationships.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I think, obviously, traditional airline partnerships will are and continue to be a cornerstone of the industry, and within the global alliances and beyond, like ourselves and Emirates. But we have new relationships. I talked a little bit about Uber. We've had a relationship with Airbnb as well, whereby when you book, we know where you're going. We know a lot about you if you're a frequent flyer. We've got all your data. We can then serve up, in conjunction with Airbnb, accommodation offerings, ground offerings. And so I think you are going to see that deeper relationship. Of course, Google are going to get involved, Amazon are going to get involved, and how airlines navigate their way through that universe is going to be very important about who's going to be successful and who's not going to be successful. But there clearly will be new relationships and alliances built up.
Okay, well, let's open things up to some questions from the audience. I think if our colleagues behind the scenes have access to the Twitter feed, they could put up any questions that we're getting through here. But I can see already there's a hand up here at the front. There's a couple of hands and one over there. So if we can get a microphone. Everybody wait for a microphone to come to you, and then if it's relevant, say who you are and where you come from, but otherwise don't. Good morning.
Good morning. On.
Is it on?
Can
There
you
we
hear
go.
me?
A little closer.
Yes. Hi, I'm Sarah Boutabiba from Travel Alliance, based in Spain. I have a question for Gareth from Qantas. You mentioned earlier about technology speeding up your disruptions. I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more on how you see that impacting your customer experience.
Oh, so technology helping disruptions?
Yes.
Yeah, so when, so today, when we have a major disruption, we find it difficult to contact all of our customers directly and provide them with rebooking options. We've got a team working within the organisation on this project, on this problem. You can envisage a future state in not too long a time where there's a disruption. Immediately, all passengers on the aircraft are contacted directly on their mobile device. Even if it's to say, there's been a disruption, we will tell you more in 20 minutes. We will tell you more in 40 minutes, because whenever you read stories about airline disruptions, the passenger feedback is always, there wasn't enough information. Nobody was talking to us. So it's key that you've got to communicate, and these devices are the best way to communicate. You can then provide, 40 minutes in, you can then provide passengers with an update. The aircraft's not going to be going for X hours or whatever the reason. Now, here's 3 options for you to rebook onto. If you're a Tier 1 frequent flyer, that might be options that are in the near term. If you're lower down the status list, there may be different options provided to you. And then you click on the button and bang, you're rebooked. It's that sort of universe that we want to move into that streamlines the experience because it is how airlines treat customers in a disruption is a big driver of choice. It's a big driver of negative customer perception. That's certainly a fact. And if you can get it right, it's a big driver of positive customer perception. So that's just one area that we're focusing a team on in terms of trying to streamline and digitize and make it as easy and simple as possible for our customers in the event of a disruption.
I have a question here on the screen from Twitter about the Hyperloop. I don't know if anybody wants to take this. How do you look at the Hyperloop? Would airlines consider covering some of their point-to-point services with it? Is this in relation? Do you want to ask the JetBlue?
When we look at regional travel, we have Raj from our JetBlue Tech Ventures sitting in somewhere. He's probably the right person to answer this.
You've got a lot of friends in Silicon Valley.
Yeah,
though,
we definitely looked at regional travel as a huge opportunity to disrupt into the future. Our first investment was this company called Zunum, which is a hybrid-powered aircraft that could potentially disrupt the regional travel space. Hyperloop definitely comes up many times. It's still early in the stages of development, but who knows, 10 years out, that could be the way to travel, short hauls.
Yeah.
They're building a Hyperloop between Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
Right. And would you work with them?
And they will try and move people in about, I forget what it is, 6 minutes, over 160 kilometre, 180 kilometre thing. I'm waiting to see how that would actually work, but eventually, if the proof of concept works and it is done in a safe, let's say seamless manner, if you can call whatever it is that you're going to sit in to get from A to B. But I also see this type of technology linking baggage systems within terminals and between airports, if you can get that, so you're shifting bags under a very, very high speed into the assembly points or the on and offload points. Those, I think, will work in the future. So I think this is a technology in its infancy. I think it's almost like the drone technology we're seeing, the revolution in automotive and all the other bits and pieces. This is something you need to keep your eye on. It is going to happen.
Nice question. So a maybe on the people and a maybe on the luggage as well. Let's get this question over here, and then we'll come back to some other hands that were raised in the middle.
Morning, Shashank Nigam with Simplifying. To be honest, I'm a little creeped out by all the discussion on the data side. It's like you want to know me more than my wife does. But the thing is, we don't really know how much she knows me or she doesn't. And that's the key. I think Anna alluded to this earlier. What will this end result look like? In fact, if each of you can share, what is one airline or travel brand that does data right now? That would be good to hear.
They'll all just say their own, I'm sure. But
No, except your own, except your own.
something you like about the way another airline does something good with the data that they bring in? Anybody? They're maybe not allowed to travel other airlines. I don't know.
This was back, I would say, 5-6 years ago, or even longer than that, when I traveled in Philippines with Cebu. They actually wished me for my birthday. I was pleasantly surprised. This was many, many years ago, even before anyone would think of personalization. These guys did it. And I asked them how they did it. They said they get a text message in their BlackBerry, and the crew had BlackBerries then.
Yes.
And it's fascinating to see how a young, small carrier could do that the large carriers didn't think about, right? I think personalization is not just wishing birthdays, it's making sure that we take care of the needs of that customer on that day of travel. And the needs could be as simple as, finding a cup of coffee, or, making sure that your reaccommodation is taken care of. I'll sit here and say, we both, like Emirates and JetBlue, we have an interline connection. Cobra, we transfer several hundred people day in and day out in JFK. Today, if there is a disruption, it's still very manual. There can be better ways for us to deal with that. And by the time we reach out to our customers, it takes hours sometimes. And we have to fundamentally take the step into automating some of these things.
It occurs to me when you mentioned the birthday anecdote that this has to happen at a speed that has customer buy-in, doesn't it? If all of this data is going to be available and used by businesses that provide us with a service, customers have to not feel freaked out by it, but appreciate the intelligence is being used in the right way. So that's just
we did a pilot a few years back in personalizing content. So we took, since JetBlue has high-speed broadband in our planes, we took a dump of all the customer and matched it against their social profile and see what kind of mood they were in. And this is this little startup that was predicting human behavior and predicting people's mood, so we can deliver personalized content through Wi-Fi.
What did you find?
We found pretty interesting things. These are all publicly available information. People, like certain things in social media. Like, people say we're going to this party. We pick that, and you deliver different content to these people. But it gets a little creepy when you start, wishing their anniversaries and things like that. So we kind of stopped at a point where while it's publicly available information, we didn't want to get too far into this. Even with biometrics, we were very skeptical initially about privacy and who wants to leave their pictures behind. But we've started seeing a lot more progress in that space now.
Let's take a question here. Get the microphone, and then we'll come over here afterwards.
Hello, good morning. My name is Mark Duursma. I'm from the Dutch daily paper NRC. I guess all the panel members will agree that using social media for customer service is a very important aspect of all the digital innovation. This week, WhatsApp announced that they will start with business accounts, and KLM, till now, is the only airline that will join the pilot program for these business accounts. So why are you not there? Do you do enough with Qantas and Emirates and JetBlue?
Just repeat that. Sorry, why are they not on?
On the WhatsApp especially, but more in general, are you using social media enough? Are you doing enough in that field?
Gareth?
We're heavily using social media. We have a whole social media team who's out there monitoring, interacting with social media all the time. In our traditional marketing spend today is the vast majority of it is now spent on digital marketing through digital channels, through social media channels. It is the way of the future. It's not just the way of the future, it's here today, and every airline has to be part of that, and we certainly are in terms of interacting and monitoring what goes on social media.
Tim?
Exactly the same. We have radar 24/7 in the social networks. We have teams of people who have been for 3 or 4, 5 years now, just looking at what is there anything in there that we need to know about, we need to adapt, adjust, brand implications from the macro to the micro. That's going on in multiple areas of the business. So the feed to us is, again, 24/7. But I wasn't quite sure whether you were talking about business-related B2B or C2B platforms within the social networks and how you're extracting value on that.
Well, the WhatsApp is business accounts.
Yeah.
Customer service.
Yeah.
Let me put it specifically. Can you tell what platform is most important for Emirates?
For Emirates, the most important platform in terms of what I would like to see is our own online platform being constructed and built in such a manner that we can reach out on the B2B, diminishing at the moment for us, and the C2B, consumers to the business. And we're trying to channel as much of what we do into that. It's not to say that we're excluding other platforms for which we will have relationships, we will extract value. But in the end, the trick, in my view, is to do as much as you can and develop what the others are doing on your own platform, perhaps a little bit better. And we're not there yet, but believe me, that is part of the online accelerant process where we're trying to do all of that.
I'm aware that we are running over slightly and depriving people of their coffee time, so I will just take this one question because I promised, and then we'll have a coffee break.
Thank you. I'll make it quick. Steve Peterson with IBM. You've all shared sort of inspiring, if somewhat similar, visions for personalization. But I wonder if we could think a little bit about the constraints, legacy system constraints generally, or PSS constraints in particular, what you guys are planning to do about those constraints insofar as they limit your vision for personalization.
Anybody? Ish, we'll take that one.
We know we have to live with these constraints for a long time. So over the last several years, we've started decoupling most of these legacy systems from what our customer-facing and crew member-facing toolkits are. So there's a huge level of advancement up here, but we do realize some of the underlying capabilities still will reside for a couple of years and then will move out. And this is where I think the venture capital unit is playing a big role for us in terms of finding ways to disrupt this industry at some point. What we keep doing over and over again, putting in Band-Aids, is not going to solve the problem. We have to disrupt this space, which is going to come through a completely new way of doing business with our customers and crew members.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Thank you to Ish, to Tim, and to Gareth, and we'll see you all back here again soon.